Good morning, everybody. This is a live update as Tropical Storm Grace is definitely looking impressive on satellite imagery, but it still is remaining a tropical storm. 1,005 millibars the central pressure is down to, and it is racing toward the northern Lesser Antilles. This is a satellite loop on tropicaltidbits.com, the incredible website for tracking these tropical cyclones. And look at that convective explosion that happened overnight. It does look like this system is starting to head a little bit toward the west-southwest, and it does have a bit of a ragged outer satellite presentation, but the convection near the center is definitely robust. Quite a bit of banding as well, but according to the National Hurricane Center, there are definitely some mixed signals so far, some that are showing that it is intensifying, and then some that are suggesting otherwise as well. And here you can see the latest hurricane model guidance for hurricane intensity. Before 6Z, the only model, or 0Z at least, the only model that was showing Grace intensifying into a hurricane was the HWRF. It still has it intensifying into a hurricane in about 36 hours. So before it even reaches Puerto Rico, this thing could be a Category 1 hurricane. Some of the models are suggesting that it could even drift just a little bit to the north of Puerto Rico, which would then take it over the southern Bahamas and then all the way to southern Florida, southeastern Florida, as likely a pretty intense hurricane. The SHIP model takes it just to the north of the Greater Antilles, and it shows steady intensification all the way up to a Category 2 hurricane before it approaches southeastern Florida. And those other models that are showing more of a tropical storm, kind of a mid to low range tropical storm, those are showing a lot of land interaction with the Greater Antilles. So that's the reason for some of that lower intensity there. The National Hurricane Center has it as a tropical storm throughout its life cycle, but overall there's very minimal amounts of environmental wind shear, basically less than 10 knots of wind shear, and really it's very rapid storm motion. Could create a little bit of storm relative shear even as the storm is moving so rapidly from the east to the west. Could lead to a bit of a tilted system, or just because of its rapid motion could allow it to reach the mountainous terrain of the Greater Antilles before it has a chance to reach a low-end hurricane. I suspect that this thing is going to be a Category 1 hurricane potentially before reaching Puerto Rico. And the National Hurricane Center has a blend and average of the two camps of models. The southern camp of models taking it right over the heart of the Greater Antilles. The mountainous terrain there weakening a little bit. And then another camp of models taking it to the north of the Greater Antilles, over the Bahamas, and then right into southeastern Florida as a potentially stronger storm without that land interaction. So Grace is definitely one to keep a very close eye on. These are those hurricane models here, just continuing that west-northwest track. But the 12Z models have shifted just a little bit north. More of those members are taking it just to the north of Puerto Rico, just to the north of Hispaniola and Cuba, and that would be a worst-case scenario for Florida because then that system would have plenty of time to intensify over the very warm waters there over the southern Bahamas. So I'm definitely keeping a very close eye on Grace and even Fred, that over the western tip of Cuba has lost its tropical cyclone characteristics. So it is being called remnants of Fred right now over western Cuba, but the forecast models are still showing a tilted system to reorganize over the eastern Gulf of Mexico and then make landfall over the far western Florida peninsula as a mid to low range tropical storm, but still with that tornado threat, potentially life-threatening surge, especially to the east of the center, and a lot of that convection will also be to the east of the center. But the models have shifted further west. Many of those camps, some of those model members even taking a tropical storm Fred right into the Mobile area, which of course is a very storm surge prone area there as well. So here you can see the GFS model for Grace. And this is the 6Z run, so I'm still waiting on the 12Z models. A couple of those members still recurve Grace off to the north, kind of taking a Dorian track through the central and northern Bahamas, and then putting on the brakes before hitting Florida, turning off to the northeast around a very large Bermuda High. But like last year, I think that this Bermuda High is going to be very large, powerful, sprawling, and extending into the southeastern U.S., and that could lead to some dry conditions out in the far out open Atlantic out near the Lesser Antilles and the Greater Antilles. But then the systems will really ramp up on approach to the southeastern U.S. And that western extension of the Bermuda High into the southeastern U.S. will cause these systems to likely pass into the Gulf of Mexico instead of being fish storms that could recurve off to the north. So I definitely do have to keep a very close eye on these. Let me pull up some more satellite imagery here of the remnants of Fred, so that we can keep an eye on that. And I'm going to pull up some more model imagery of Fred as well, heading off to the north. The Dominator 4 on the storm chase yesterday definitely had issues with the exhaust, and that's definitely going to be a concern for chasing hurricanes. I definitely want to get it in to get it fixed early this coming week, but I will chase if these systems do ramp up and present basically a chase scenario as the only option. In that case, I'll chase with a hole in my exhaust header and just keep the windows cracked. But I think the last couple of years I've been breathing in a lot of exhaust inside Dominator 4, and that might explain a lot. Some of my headaches, a little bit of fatigue out there as well. But I'm still going to chase anyway. And I need to get the roof rack added on the top of Dominator 4. I got to meet up with Sasha and Critter to do that because the Dominator weather stations are almost ready. Mark is coming down the home stretch on those, and we're hoping to deploy the first Dominator weather station in time for the first hurricane that I do intercept this season. So here is Tropical Cyclone Grace. Minimum pressure as of this morning estimated at 1,005 millibars, and does have a very nice outflow pattern. Look at all these little bands out here within that outflow pattern. That shows that this is a very effective heat engine at transporting heat from the ocean surface to a loft in the upper troposphere. This is a very nice inner core here, centered over the center of circulation as well, a very symmetric system here. So all of this convection is producing nonstop phase changes from water vapor into condensed cloud and rain as well, and that releases heat in the middle troposphere and aloft, and that's the process by which these tropical cyclones are able to transport heat into the upper troposphere. So that pressure is quite low, 1,005 millibars. So given such a nice presentation here, I wouldn't be surprised if this does happen to reach a Category 1 hurricane strength on approach to Puerto Rico. Right now, though, there are just tropical storm watches out there across Puerto Rico, and I thought there were also tropical storm watches for eastern Hispaniola, but it does look like Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands there do have that tropical storm watch still in effect, and there you can see the official hurricane center cone. So let's now take a look at Fred. Satellite imagery here of Fred, and again the models have been shifting west with Fred, so here you can see that official forecast track there, and again the latest advisory are remnants of Fred there because it is difficult to find that low level center. There you can see the western tip of Cuba. And it is difficult to see exactly if there is a low-level center. You can see some of these cloud elements streaming in from west to east here on the southern portion of that western tip of Cuba. So in general, we do have some cyclonic spin to this storm, a little bit of convection there forming over the land there of western Cuba. But right now it does look like it is difficult, if not impossible, to find a low-level center. And even the cloud matter there over the island of western Cuba is hardly moving. So look at that. You can see those towering cumulus and cumulus clouds firing there over the western tip of Cuba. Hardly moving, suggesting that there's likely a very minimal low-level pressure gradient there on the outside of that convection at least. So right now it is difficult to see a low-level center or a closed low-level center on satellite imagery. Surface obs not showing that as well, and that's the motivation for causing the reduction there in the intensity. And now it's just the remnants of Fred. It's kind of reminded me a little bit of a Marco situation here, where Marco's going to come through the Gulf, kind of be a low-end tropical cyclone, but also open the door from an atmospheric moisture standpoint for Grace to come in from the east here as a much more powerful storm. Maybe coming in all the way unimpeded all the way to southeastern Florida, which would be a big-time problem with Grace here if it misses the mountainous terrain of the Greater Antilles, comes in over the southern Bahamas, hitting southeastern Florida would certainly be an issue there. Fred, overall, warm water beneath it. There is a little bit of wind shear associated with an upper level low. Some of this cloudiness here over the central and eastern Gulf of Mexico associated with that so far has led to some wind shear associated with Fred, some southerly wind shear. And that wind shear is expected to subside as it moves over the eastern Gulf of Mexico and then ramp back up again once it gets up to the northeastern Gulf of Mexico on approach to Mobile. So it's likely going to be a tilted system. But look at that code of uncertainty still. Includes even a sliver there of southeastern Louisiana, coastal Mississippi as well, and even portions of coastal Alabama and the Florida Panhandle with that system. And even the low-level clouds there over the Florida Strait are moving largely east to west. So this thing is basically a tropical wave now, remnants of Fred. But if it does reform over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, it'll still be called Fred. So don't worry about that. Good heavens. So let's take a look at some of the forecast models here in greater detail. Specifically, I want to look at the HWRF model here for Grace. And I also want to look at the general steering current. Look at this Bermuda High here, this lobe of the Bermuda High extending all the way off to the west. And so just like last year, where that subtropical high, sprawling subtropical high extended all the way across the southeastern U.S., that caused a lot of those systems to evolve over the Gulf of Mexico. An unprecedented Gulf of Mexico season for hurricanes last year, of course. So I want to show you let's take a look at the HWRF here for Hurricane Grace, or for Tropical Storm Grace, pardon me. Oh, I accidentally switched off here. So this is an incredible website to visualize this tropical information here, the tropicaltidbits.com website. And there's really nothing too much to be gained by looking at the HWRF out here, except let's just see this thing intensify this into a hurricane on approach to Puerto Rico. And look at that thing bottom out. But misses Puerto Rico just off to the north, but has it as a pretty substantial hurricane, maintaining its intensity, if not even intensifying gradually all the way through the Bahamas. There you can see through near the Bahamas and then eventually coming into southeastern Florida there. But this is the HWRF, showing the storm intensifying into a hurricane over the Virgin Islands there. And then misses Puerto Rico just off to the north before continuing to intensify, passing over the central Bahamas there, very close to Nassau, even Marsh Harbor, and then approaching southeastern Florida as a pretty substantial hurricane there. So you're going to have the standard decisions. Do you want to island hop, intercept this storm, maybe take a gamble and head out to Fajardo there in eastern Puerto Rico? We do have that little wobble in satellite right now off to the west-southwest on approach to the northern Lesser Antilles. Maybe that's a sign that some of those southern model camps could be the most representative track. Or that could just be a temporary wobble and it'll curl back to the north, and that rapid speed, the rapid forward speed of this tropical cyclone could prevent intensification like is indicated here. But if this thing misses the greater Antilles to the north, I don't think there's really anything to slow it down. And even that lead tropical cyclone Fred certainly could open the door kind of from a moisture standpoint for this system to continue to intensify unimpeded all the way to southeastern Florida. Look at that, all the way down into the 970s there. We'll see what the HWRF does with Fred out here. This is the 6Z HWRF model. Seems to be a little bit aggressive with Fred, at least early on here. Boy, the HWRF really intensifies Fred still. But right now it is still just remnants. Takes it all the way up through the Ohio River Valley. Has it as a tilted system, but a pretty stout tropical storm, if not even stronger than that. Look at it reorganize quickly there. Possibly responding to some upper level diffluence, some favorable conditions there on approach. So the HWRF intensifies that into a pretty robust hurricane, or a pretty robust tropical storm coming into the western Florida panhandle there. That'll be also something that we have to watch. But of course, reformation still quite likely. 11 a.m. though, a little bit of a downgrade in intensity up to 50 miles an hour. Let's see what some of the intensity models are showing here. And this is the new outlook, 11 a.m. Eastern time from the National Hurricane Center. Combination of that shear from the upper level low over the Gulf of Mexico and land interaction has caused it to degenerate into an open wave. So basically looking at satellite, those stagnant clouds over the western tip of Cuba show that there's a complete reduction in the pressure gradient force there over Cuba. Surface obs do not show closed circulation. Satellite imagery shows at least a couple vorticity centers embedded within there. Strongest convection is currently near and southeast of the vorticity center near the Isle of Youth. So that was that convection that was really over land over western Cuba. Global models forecast the upper level trough to move northward and weaken during the next 24 hours, which will reduce the wind shear over the eastern Gulf of Mexico. The HWRF is definitely picking up on that. More favorable wind shear conditions for intensification over the eastern Gulf of Mexico with those warm waters as well. NHC thinks that upper level trough is quite strong and won't weaken as fast as the models are indicated. But still, a forecast to regain tropical cyclone status in about 24 hours, so we'll keep an eye on it here on satellite imagery. If it does look like this thing is going to be a little bit higher end, then we will deploy. All the watches and warnings have been discontinued at this time for Fred. But one thing I've learned in the tropics is don't discount anything, especially when you have that warm water there in the tropics. You definitely want to keep your head on a swivel out there. Always have those plans ready to go. People that live on the Gulf Coast certainly know how to prepare for these hurricanes. Let's see what the new hurricane models are showing here for intensity. They still do show this uptick into a tropical storm. When you look at that, the official intensity forecast is basically below the forecast expected rate of reorganization, regaining a tropical cyclone within 24 hours. National Hurricane Center expects it within about 36 hours to regain minimal tropical storm strength. And then after about 48 hours here as we're approaching landfall there in western Florida, maybe near the Mobile area, probably Monday afternoon. It appears on Monday, landfall will be happening out there with this tropical depression / tropical storm. Pretty well, hurricane models are in pretty good agreement still with this western shift, even more toward Mobile Bay than before. So the official is just a blend there. 72 hours from 12Z, 72 hours from this morning. Should make landfall Monday afternoon, evening, Monday night type of a time frame out there. With this shift west, at least it is going to be over water for a little bit longer than previously forecast. And you can just see this curvature around the western periphery of that Bermuda High. But Grace is definitely one to keep a very close eye on. Grace certainly could be a dominator for mobilization. It is possible that if this tropical storm Fred organizes a little bit faster, a little bit closer to the HWRF solution, that I may have to deploy as well and blast off to the east in Dominator 4. I have no problem doing that, of course. There is an active monsoon, flash flood watches across southern Arizona, southern New Mexico. Once again, here you can see the 12Z GFS coming in. Look at this, 1023 Bermuda High here, and that's just off the coast of the mid-Atlantic here. So this western lobe of the Bermuda High is quite substantial. And another thing I saw, Eric Webb is a great meteorologist, someone that I follow really closely for his tropical outlooks as well. And there is a new long-range forecast, August through October, of 200 millibar velocity potential over the Atlantic, basically showing how much difluence aloft there will be, or how healthy of an environment for convection will evolve over the open Atlantic. It's correlated with the Madden-Julian oscillation, which basically moves slowly around the tropical latitudinal belt of the planet, going all the way around the globe, exciting convection in different ocean basins as it moves around the planet. And when a favorable phase of the MJO moves over the Atlantic, it results in an uptick in convection. And it looks like that's going to happen over the peak hurricane season, August to October. Basically the rest of August, September, October. Favorable velocity potential for favorable convection, for healthy convection out there. All the ingredients will be in place for these tropical cyclones to really reach their full potential out there. And that's definitely in line with an active hurricane season. We are just approaching peak, and usually this is when hurricanes really start to ramp up. Last year was kind of an anomaly with everything happening so early. So look at the jet. The jet is way up in Canada right now. That's allowing the monsoon to reinvigorate, getting that summertime anticyclone there, a little bit closer to the Four Corners. A little bit of return flow and moisture surges happening there. Some disturbances coming in the easterly flow on the southern edge of that high so far. So instead of the surges coming up the Sea of Cortez, this year it seems like you're getting a lot of these easterly waves on the southern edge of that subtropical high for monsoon. Looking at the Western Atlantic here. I want to look something that also shows the Gulf of Mexico. Let's do Southwestern Atlantic. I want to do something that shows a little bit. There you can see that upper level low here on Sunday. Southerly shear here in the upper troposphere. But as this storm lifts off to the north and starts moving a little bit more parallel to that wind shear, in a storm relative sense, even that will help to reduce that wind shear just a bit. But that's some pretty robust wind shear as well. We can look at the evolution of that upper level low first here in the Gulf of Mexico. I'm not very good with the tropics, everybody, but I do my best out here. But I'm definitely more of a severe weather guru, more of a small-scale meteorology guy. Not very good with the barotropics, but, you know, I took all the classes and everything too, and I'll do my best here. But there you can see that upper level low in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico, I believe. Yeah. There it is. So it looks like it certainly doesn't weaken during the day today. But this has caused quite a bit of wind shear, mainly land interaction, in my opinion. Just not quite healthy enough of a tropical cyclone to move over Hispaniola and Cuba and still survive it on the other end. But it seems like the H-wave, for some reason, intensifies Fred as it lifts northward through the eastern Gulf of Mexico. Possibly it's moving so fast that it just doesn't feel that big-time wind shear as it lifts off to the north. But that upper level low is forecast to lift out and weaken with time. It does appear to be weakening here by Sunday morning. A little bit of a reduction of that upper tropospheric southerly flow here across the eastern Gulf of Mexico. That could be what the H-wave is picking up on, so you don't want to discount Fred just yet. But the National Hurricane Center thinks that this upper level low is so robust that it's just not going to spin down as rapidly as the forecast models are showing. So the 12Z does seem to spin down that upper level low, but it does maintain this southerly flow here in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So there is likely going to be some wind shear, and that's going to result in that tilted system. But the wind shear definitely does reduce over the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and this is by early Monday morning, by Sunday night. Could very easily open the door for an intensifying tropical cyclone into the eastern Gulf of Mexico. This is the new 12Z GFS here. Come on, computer. And again, I'm really excited to bring these tap water filters down as soon as I start chasing a hurricane. This is the latest GFS, though, by 9Z. This is early Monday morning. You can see this tropical cyclone heading off to the north toward the Mobile Bay area, western Florida Panhandle, as well as that upper level low lifts out and allows this system to reorganize just a bit. Looks like even the new GFS definitely hints at a tilted system with a lot of this convection over the eastern and northeastern quadrant of this tropical cyclone. But it does show it reorganizing over the northeastern Gulf of Mexico during the day on Sunday. The pressures definitely do fall on approach to the Florida Panhandle. And as I mentioned just a bit ago, these are these Sawyer tap filters. You just hook this right up to your faucet, and you can generate up to 500 gallons of water per day. So this is going to be a way that we're going to help out people before, during, and after the storm, especially after the storm. When the water starts to deteriorate, the quality of the water starts to go bad, we'll roll in there with these Sawyer tap filters and hopefully help people generate clean drinking water to drink as they're recovering from these storms and immediately after the storm especially. And even if Fred is a lower end tropical cyclone, it still could cause problems, still could cause problems with the drinking water supply, could certainly cause flooding. As well, and the H-Wharf has this system intensifying into a pretty robust tropical storm, maybe even a low-end hurricane on approach, quite a tilted system. And as that upper level low weakens, these systems can organize really fast, especially a pretty compact system like the new models are showing this one to be once it does reform. And the new GFS, the 12Z GFS, comes in here and definitely has a legitimate tropical storm on approach to the coastline here. Monday, late afternoon, Monday evening. And it seems like the 12Z GFS is getting on board a bit with the H-Wharf here, showing even potentially a high-end tropical storm coming into the western Florida Panhandle Monday evening. So this will be at like 8, 9 p.m. Monday evening when this comes in. And then begins to weaken on Monday night after it moves inland. Certainly could be some tornadoes too. Northwestern Florida, Florida Panhandle, there in northwestern Florida. But the NHC right now thinks that the upper level low in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico is going to be a bit more stubborn, and that's going to keep that southerly wind shear going across the eastern Gulf of Mexico. So they're not as bullish as this new GFS model run in weakening that upper level low, opening the door for this to re-intensify into even a potentially a high-end tropical storm there. And meanwhile, the new GFS model has grace over the high mountains there, the Dominican Republic. Not quite on board with that solution that misses the Greater Antilles off to the north and then hits southeastern Florida completely unimpeded. But this would still give plenty of time to intensify on approach to southern Florida. A lot of very warm water up here as well. Steering flow on the southern periphery of this Bermuda high should maintain a west-northwesterly track. Slowly curving more toward the northwest with time here. A little westward extension of the Bermuda high should drive this thing right toward the southeastern U.S. Potentially has a pretty substantial tropical cyclone. I wouldn't be surprised if that's even a hurricane. Definitely anywhere in the southeastern U.S. and the Gulf Coast need to keep a very close eye on this track here. I just don't see how this is not going to be a big problem here for portions of the southeastern U.S. This would be the later portion of next week. So this would be Thursday, Friday when it passes over South Florida. Because of the intensity of this Bermuda high and kind of the strong steering flow from east to west, these systems are really racing. So this is going to go likely just to the north, graze the northern edge of the Greater Antilles, and certainly would have plenty of time to intensify just to the north of Cuba there. And then would re-enter the Gulf of Mexico and then likely be a big problem as well after that, the weekend, and even beyond the weekend as well. And look at this monster subtropical high here, taking up a large swath of the Atlantic, intertropical convergence zone off to the south. And Grace is definitely going to be an issue. We'll keep an eye on it. And Fred, I think, is also going to be an issue. Some of the models are showing that upper level low. Still, even the 12Z model guidance are showing that thing to weaken quite rapidly, that upper level low, which would open the door across the eastern Gulf of Mexico for this thing to organize. But usually once these tropical cyclones lose their identity, it can take a little bit of time, more time, to organize a consolidated center and then to also intensify. So with that southerly wind shear right up until landfall, there is a decent chance that it'll likely be a lower end tropical cyclone, and that the GFS and the HWRF are a little bit bullish in the reorganization of Fred. So thank you everybody for tuning in to my tropical update. I'm keeping a very close eye on all these tropical cyclones, and storm chase mode could be activated at the drop of a hat at any time. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and have a great Saturday. Never stop chasing.